So we artificially extended the west side of Vine, extended that line, and then extended the south side of 12th, and where those two intersected, that became a new reference point. Otherwise, there was no way to work your way around the corner.
And you would have photographed everything you found?
We photographed everything we found.
At that time, you don't know whether it has evidentiary value or not?
Didn't know.
And did you document?
We did, and it was photographed, it was collected, and then it was subsequently processed for fingerprints. And nothing suitable for identification was found on the items that we found.
You probably can't read the list of items from there.
I can't read it from here, but
Let me bring this closer. And I'm just going to have you go through and point out to the jury what you found and where.
the first item was located was a gum wrapper for Wrigley's Extra Gum. It was the outside of the gum package. And it was item A, which was found in the area that I'm pointing to. It's on the west side of Vine Street. And it's across from item E. And item E were wrappers for the inside of the package. So we had the outside on one side of Vine and the additional wrappers on the other side of the street. We have an Old Fitzgerald liquor bottle, which is located on the west side of Vine, and it's a little further north from the gum wrappers. Then there was a French fry container for Burger King located next to it. There was a hamburger container from Burger King. And then there were some papers, a paper sack that was on the other side of the street. So we had a liquor bottle and then debris from Burger King. As we continued up the street, we ran across a wheel cover, which was item G. It's a wheel cover from an automobile. It's an unknown manufacturer. We ran across an I by the curb, and that was a Swiss Valley milk carton. As we ran around the street, we ran across a double-mint gum wrapper on the south side of 12th, and across from that was an old-style beer bottle. Then we ran across the remains, and further west from the remains was the center insert from the Camaro Z28. Across the street from the Z28 was a Gatorade bottle, and then directly across the street from the remains was the Hamm's beer can.
Again, all those items were collected and documented?
Yes, sir, they were.
Processed for fingerprints?
Yes, sir, they were.
None found?
No, nothing suitable.
Now, we can assume at some point somebody handled at least the beer can. It's kind of hard to drink a beer without holding it.
That's true.
And all those items were photographed?
They were. They were photographed before they were collected.
Did you make some other observations at the scene as far as tire tracks?
There were tire tracks south of where the remains were located. They were in the grass south of where the body had been recovered.
I'm going to bring up Exhibit 58 again. Using the pointer, are you able to show us what you're talking about as far as tire tracks? I'm sorry, tire tracks?
I'm pointing to the area where there are tire tracks, which are essentially east and west, and they're immediately south of where the remains were located. And there's another set of tire tracks that are going primarily north and south, and they intersect along the bottom of the photograph, and those are at approximately a right angle.
What conclusion, based on your training experience, did you come to regarding those tire tracks?
They appeared to have been there for a while. The vegetation was dying, and they appeared to be a result of somebody who had been joyriding in the park, but they did not have the appearance of being fresh.
You did not think that they were from the night before?
No, sir. Somebody had been up there, and the grass had been damaged and was dying, and wouldn't have enough time to have died to that point in 12 hours.
I want to, while we're talking about evidence collection, are you aware of what residences and vehicles were searched in relation to this case?
I did one, the 13th of Vine.
Were you aware that the Glen resident, or excuse me, that Brenda Adams' residence was searched in Rock Island?
I didn't know all of the searches that were conducted over in Rock Island. I know that the Liggins residence was searched. I know that we did the search over on the 13th and Vine. That came later in the investigation. That was a week later. But I don't know all the people's places that were searched as part of this case.
Would you have been involved in the decisions to send items to the DCI laboratory in 1990?
Yes, sir. I'm the one who put together the submission.
And would have that included both items from the Rock Island side and the Davenport side?
Yes, sir.
How was a determination made of what to send to the DCI?
We were attempting to associate, we're attempting to determine what would be of probative value, what would do us some good in the investigation. Specifically, what could we learn from Jennifer Lewis's clothes? Our first concern was to see if there was a presence of gasoline, and we'd also seen that there was foreign material adhering to her clothes, and we wanted an idea what that was. We had a sexual assault kit that had been prepared for her, and we wanted to see if there was evidence pertaining to a sexual assault. Did we have hairs? Did we have fibers? Did we have seminal fluid? Were any of those things present? The other thing we were looking for, by the time the submission was put together to send to the laboratory, Mr. Liggins' car had been searched for evidence. His residence at the Hillside Hotel over in Rock Island had been searched. And what we were now attempting to do was to Through fingerprints processing on the car, did we put Jennifer Lewis's fingerprints in or on that automobile? In processing the car, did we have evidence that would indicate there was some kind of sexual assault that had taken place in the car? We were looking for the transfer of hairs and fibers. Again, did we have something that Jennifer transferred to the inside of Mr. Liggins' car? We collected a number of things from his car for search. We sent in the mats. We did tape lifts where we used 4-inch wide tape and lifted hairs and fibers from the carpeting of the car. The carpeting was eventually sent in, as was the back seat and the center console. From his apartment in Rock Island, we were interested in his clothing. And could we associate hairs and fibers from her onto his clothing? If there were foreign fibers, the odds of that on the small area of clothing we had recovered from Jennifer, we didn't think we were going to have much of a chance, but could we have something from her transferred to his clothing? And we sent clothing from Mr. Liggins, bedding from Mr. Liggins, up for analysis. Again, that was for hair and fiber evidence. We were also looking to see if we had anything related to a sexual assault from his personal effects and from the clothing and bedding in his apartment.
We've heard the testimony of Paul Bush about the DNA examinations in the sexual assault kit, and we're going to hear more from Sabrina Seehafer about DNA. But so you have a lot of stuff, clothing, and we're going to talk about the car search in a little more detail, but you said you've collected mats, collected samples, and fibers from everywhere, or not everywhere, but from Mr. Liggins' clothing and the car, his room, correct?
That is correct.
Is there any guarantee, I mean, we've all, or some of us have seen CSI, but when you send in something like that, is there any guarantee of results that something is going to connect? If a person is one place, are they going to necessarily leave some sort of forensic evidence?
There's no guarantee that you're going to find it. There's no guarantee that it was left. There's no guarantee that you're going to find it.
Does the absence of any sort of forensic evidence preclude Jennifer from being in his vehicle or his room?
No, sir. We can prove positives. We can prove if someone has been associated, but you can't prove a negative. If you don't find it, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen or that it didn't exist, but you have nothing to prove. You don't have a positive finding that would prove that it actually took place.
Now, in the 1990, when you were making decisions of what to send, then were you made aware of what the results of those examinations were by the DCI?
Yes, sir.
What, in general, what were the results of those examinations by the DCI as far as fibers, DNA, well, it wouldn't have been DNA then, but fibers, trace evidence, that sort of thing?
None of the evidence that was submitted could be associated either with Jennifer or with Mr. Liggins with his property.
Was there another examination of items later on in the future in 2014?
Yes, there was.
And what was done in 2014?
That's when, in 1990, the Iowa DCI laboratory did not do DNA examinations. People think that it's been around forever, and the first forensic case with DNA was in 1987. And by 1990, it had not been implemented in Iowa. In 2014, the decision was made to send the evidence, resubmit the evidence that was originally examined in 1990 to see if anything could be done specifically with the hairs. And it's outside my realm of, I'm not Dr. Seahaver. She's the DNA analyst. But the technology exists to be able to identify an individual through the root structure of the hair, not from the shaft, not from what it grossly appears, but from DNA and the roots of the hair. And that technology existed in 2014. It did not exist in 1990.
And without going into the details of Dr. Seahaver's report, am I correct that there was no DNA identification of Jennifer Lewis in any of the items?
That is correct.
Was another trace analysis done in 2014?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 207. Correction, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 205. You recognize State's Exhibit 205?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is State's Exhibit 205?
State's Exhibit 205 is a Division of Criminal Investigation Laboratory report, and it is for case 2014-22301, and it's the first report issued by the laboratory under that case number. It was issued on April 17th of 2014 by Carl, K-A-R-L, Franzenberg, F-R-A-N-Z-E-N-B-U-R-G, and this is a report from the trace section of the laboratory.
This time I've moved to admit State's Exhibit 205.
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 205 is admitted.
So again, then in 2014, an attempt was made to examine items, including a sweater belonging to Stanley Liggins, stonewashed jeans, a pair of work pants, and blue plaid fabric from the victim. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would it be safe to summarize that by saying there were no findings as a result of that additional analysis in 2014?
That is correct.
But it was tried.
Yes, sir.
Did you do some additional fingerprint analysis in 2014?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you do?
I processed a number of articles that were party supplies, which were obtained from the Rock Island Police Department. These were associated with Brenda Adams and with Stanley. They were birthday party favors. There was a My Little Pony doll. Those articles were processed for fingerprints.
And that was done by you?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And what was the result of your fingerprint analysis?
I specifically was looking to see if I could associate Jennifer Lewis with any of the party supplies, and I was unable to do so. I was able to associate Mr. Liggins with them, but it doesn't come as a surprise. They were his property. I did not have the right hand impressions from Jennifer Lewis to work with because they had been consumed by the fire. But for the things that I had from the left hand, there was no association. None of the fingerprints suitable for identification were made by the fingerprints I had available.
What that tells us is there are no identifiable fingerprints belonging to Jennifer Lewis on those items.
That we know of.
This time I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 207. Is that the report that we prepared in 2014 in connection with your analysis?
Yes, sir. This is my report from the DCI laboratory.
This time I move to admit State's 207.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 203.
I noticed nothing was submitted from the Glen residence. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Why was nothing submitted from the Glen residence in connection with this investigation?
Because if we associated fibers from Joseph Glenn, if I was able to associate fibers from Jennifer's clothes onto her father's clothes, I couldn't tell you whether that was because she was in the same house, lived in the same roof, or whether it was associated with her demise. So being able to establish a connection only says that they were together. It doesn't say when they were together and under what circumstances. So the probative value for being able to associate her clothing, her hair at her own house is pretty negligible.
Or even signify, or even show that their clothing were together at some point? Dirty laundry, or?
We don't know. And that's the whole thing. You don't know the circumstances under which the transfer would have taken place.
And would that be the same with DNA? Finding Jennifer's DNA in her own home is not going to be a significant finding. It would be possibly expected.
That is correct.
As would Joel Glenn's or Sherry Glenn's.
That is correct.
Going back now to 1990 then, were you involved in a demonstration with Adonna Atkins?
I was, yes, sir.
Where did that take place?
At the hillside, in the parking lot of the hillside in Rock Island. This is near her apartment.
And would that be the hillside apartments containing State's Exhibit 7?
That is correct.
Middle of the picture.
Yes, sir.
And what did you do when you were at the hillside apartments with Donna Atkins?
Mr. Liggins' Peugeot automobile was transported to the lot, placed in the area where she said that she had seen the car, and then photographs were taken of the car in that location. Photographs were taken showing it in relationship to where she was and in relation to where Mr. Liggins' room was. And we also took photographs of the car showing it with and without the gasoline can that she said she had seen in the car, and then she pointed out where that had been at the time that she saw it.
Did you take a photograph then, documenting where she said she saw the gasoline can in the car?
Yes, sir.
To show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 56. Is State's Exhibit 56 that photograph?
Yes, sir.
This time I move to admit State's Exhibit 56.
No objection, Your Honor. 56 is admitted.
And what are we seeing there? I don't know if I can do anything about the glare.
It's a State's Exhibit 56 is a color photograph, and it depicts a approximately 2-gallon gas can located behind the passenger seat. So it's on the rear passenger seat, and the filler spout is by the headrest for the front passenger seat.
And was that taken at the direction of, or with the assistance of Donna Adkins?
Yes, sir, it was.
And State's Exhibit 104. Is that another photograph taken at that time?
That's correct.
Showing the entire car.
In relationship to the building.
Were you involved in a search of that vehicle?
Yes, sir, I was.
And when did that take place?
There were two searches of the car. The first one took place on September 19th and extended into the early hours of September 20th, 1990.
What was done during that search?
The car was photographed, was inventoried, and was processed for latent fingerprints. And a number of articles from the inside of the car were collected, and they were subsequently processed for latent fingerprints.
What was done on the search of the interior of the car?
The floor mats were collected for trace evidence, and then we took 15 tape lifts from the carpeting, looking again for hairs and fibers. We photographed the interior of the car to show what it looked like before the search began, and then we processed it for prints after we had taken our photographs.
I want to talk about the processing of the print for prints. What was the result? First of all, was that done by you?
Yes, sir.
And what was the result of the processing of prints regarding the interior of the car?
In the interior of the car, we had one fingerprint that we were able to identify. On the rear door, the rear passenger's door, was made by Mr. Joseph Glenn.
Mr. Glenn testified that he worked on the window of the door. Would that be consistent with that sort of thing?
It's the same door that you claim to have worked on.
Okay. Were there any other identifiable fingerprints?
There were two prints that were recovered from the Mountain Dew can, a crushed Mountain Dew can, that were identified with Mr. Liggins. There was a fingerprint on the gas can, on the handle of the gas can, that was identified with Mr. Liggins. And on the exterior of the car, there were two fingerprints on the rear hood, the trunk that were identified with Brenda Adams. And then there were fingerprints on the driver's side of the car that were identified with Mr. Liggins.
You testified that you photographed the interior of the car. It would have been marked as State's Exhibits 45, 46, and 138. Those exhibits, are those photographs that were taken of the interior of the car at the time of the search?
Yes, they are.
So I move to admit State's Exhibits 45, 46, and 138.
No objection, Your Honor. Exhibits 45, 46, and 138 are
Just show you State's Exhibit 45. What is depicted in State's Exhibit 145?
This is the front seat area of the car. It shows a Whistler radar detector. It shows the center console. Then it shows the floor mats, which were subsequently collected.
How would you describe just the overall cleanliness and condition of this car?
The car was well maintained.
Very clean?
It was clean.
State's Exhibit 46. What are we seeing in State's Exhibit 46?
State's Exhibit 46 is the driver's side of the rear passenger area of the car, and it depicts a bar of dial soap which was found on the floor.
What was done with the bar of dial soap?
It was collected and processed for fingerprints.
Any results?
Nothing suitable.
And then State's Exhibit 138.
This depicts, State's Exhibit 138 depicts the passenger side of the rear passenger area of the car, and specifically a crushed Mountain Dew can, which was subsequently processed for fingerprints.
And you testified that you were able to identify fingerprints on that as Mr. Liggins.
That's correct.
What else was done regarding the interior of the car?
We had made the tape lifts for the interior of the car. We'd examined it. We'd examined it for prints. We'd examined it for trace. We had collected. We looked. There was some gum found up in the front seat area of the car. That was collected and processed for prints. And the gasoline can from the back was taken, as were other cleaning supplies from the back of the trunk.
What was the results of the processing of the gum from the vehicle?
Nothing suitable for identification.
Now, was there a second search of the vehicle done?
Yes, sir, there was.
And when was that done?
I have to look at my notes for that. The second search of the car was done on October 1st.
What was done at that time?
We looked at the car with an alternate light source, which is some alternative to a laser. You have a very pure type of light, and it will cause hairs and not hairs, but fibers to fluoresce. And we were looking to see if by using that alternate light source, we would be able to see fibers that we otherwise couldn't visualize. And that was conducted in a garage owned by the city of Davenport.
Is this a good time for our morning break?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's take our morning break, ladies and gentlemen. It's 10 to 11. We'll have 5 after 11. Keep the ammunition in mind. Do not discuss the case and continue to keep moving on. Please rise to the occasion. Let's go on the record. We are outside the presence of the jury. And there was a motion filed by the defense this morning to allow the former testimony under Rule 5.804 of Sarah B. And it's asking to have the former testimony under oath be provided through the 1999 PCR testimony.
I'm not aware what the basis is of her availability. Yes.
Did we find out the reason we needed that? Transportation? He's thinking, okay.
Please be seated. Mr. Kern, you still on your own? Mr. Walton, your last question before we took our break was about the second search of the car.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Kern, I believe you were discussing a trace evidence search of the car the second time.
Yes, sir.
And those items were collected.
Yes, sir. The car was processed. We were using an all-in light source. And we were looking at the upholstery of the car, and we had seen some writing that showed up in the back seat. And we couldn't decipher what the writing was, and we started to take the back seat out of the car. And when we did that, we noticed that the area underneath the back seat was had a different appearance than the flooring and the rest of the car.
Sure, what's been marked as state's exhibits. (50, 51, and 52). Recognize what those are.
Yes, sir.
Are those photographs taken at the time you made the observations you just testified about regarding the back seat?
Yes, sir.
And did they truly and accurately represent the vehicle at that time?
Yes, sir, they did.
Someone moved to admit state's exhibits 50, 51, and 52.
No objection.
Exhibits 50, 51, and 52 are admitted.
To show you state's exhibit 52. State's exhibit 52, what are we seeing there?
You're looking at the area under the carpet, underneath where the rear cushion of the back seat had been. And it isn't carpeting, but it's
an underlayment, and the area that was covered by the seat cushion is darker than the area in front of it. And when we touched it, we could tell that it was moist to the touch.
Can you show us with the pointer what you're describing?
There's a discoloration that runs along where that runs along the carpeting, and it was an area that would have been protected had the seat cushion been in place. And you can see that the discoloration is darker in that area than what it is in the area in front of it.
And what did you find about that area?
When we touched it, it was damp to the touch. It was wet, but it didn't have the odor of soap or a cleaner in that regard, and it didn't have a musty smell as though it had been there for a while.
Can you explain that regarding the musty smell?
You could touch and feel the fabric and feel the moisture in the fabric, but when you smelled your hand afterward, you're not picking up something that had been there and aged. It didn't smell like dirty socks. It didn't have an odor to it as something that had been there for an extended period of time.
Then State's Exhibit 50.
State's Exhibit 50 does a better job of depicting it. It gives you a better idea of the differences in color between the front and the back. And the dark areas are the moist areas, and those are the areas that would have been covered by the seat cushion, and the lighter area is what was in front of the seat cushion would have been exposed to the air. Again, with the pointer, you can see the line is pretty well demarked, and everything in the lighter area is dry, and the area that's dark is moist to the touch.
That lead you to the conclusion that water had got on the seat and under the seat?
That was the conclusion that we drew.
And then State's Exhibit 51.
State's Exhibit 51 depicts the floor area of the car after the mat had been removed. And specifically, there's an absence of rust. You can see the sheet metal, but it's not rusting. And we're not seeing rust through in that area. On either side of the car, the area that I'm pointing to right now, this would be the area that was underneath the moist carpeting. And it had not rusted, the sheet metal down there had not rusted, and had not rusted through to our knowledge. We looked at it and could see no areas of body rust through.
What was the significance of the lack of rust in that area?
Didn't have time for the metal to react with the water. We felt that if it had been there for an extended period of time, we should be seeing rust as the metal reacted to the moisture.
Did you make any determination of whether or not that could have been coming from underneath the vehicle?
We looked on the bottom of the car, and the car had rust proofing that had been sprayed on rust proofing. It was still present, and in our examination, we did not find an area, a visible area where water could leak into the car.
I believe during the first search of the vehicle, the items were removed from the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And would that include the trunk?
There were things taken from the trunk, yes, sir.
What's depicted in State's Exhibit 47?
State's Exhibit 47 is the trunk area of Mr. Liggins' car at the Davenport Police Department, and it depicts the condition of the car before anything was removed.
State's Exhibit 210. Recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir.
What is-
State's Exhibit 210 depicts the gasoline can, which is also present in the overall photograph, and it's a view looking down from the top of the car into the trunk.
State, you move to admit State's Exhibit 210.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 210 is admitted.
Does 210 show other items that were observed and removed from the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Let me, I'll tell you what, I'll close that and we can testify about it. What items you observe in 210?
In 210, you see the gas can in the left side of the photograph. Immediately to its right, you see a white sheet of paper, and the white sheet of paper is it says 40 years of peanuts, and that was also collected. And then above that white sheet of paper, in there that I'm pointing to, there's a sponge, and then there's a bucket next to the sponge. And the sponge was also collected as evidence.
Any other items collected? There a balloon?
There was a balloon, a Mylar balloon for a birthday that was back there, and that was also collected.
What was done with the gas can?
The gas can was, the gasoline that was still in the bottom of the can was collected. That was item AP, and was sent to the laboratory. Then we allowed it to air out to get rid of as many gas fumes as we could, and then we processed. We super glued the tank looking for fingerprints.
Sorry if I can interrupt you there. After you emptied the gas can, how long did it take for it to air out, to dry out?
The day,
A day?
somewhere in there.
And after that, then I believe you were testifying you began the process.
That's correct.
How was that done?
It was done with super glue fuming.
Can you explain that?
Super glue, when heated, emits a white powder. It's a white fume, and the white fume will deposit on moisture, and it's the moisture of the fingerprints that those white fumes will begin to adhere to. Once that process starts, then additional fumes will bond to the ones that have already started to form on the moisture, so it builds up a white coating on the article, and it shows the fingerprint with a white coating that's actually bonded to the surface of the material. And in this case, it was the handle of the gas can.
And what were the results?
I was able to identify the fingerprint on the handle with Mr. Liggins.
To show you what's been marked State's Exhibit 206. What is Exhibit 206?
State's Exhibit 206 are two Polaroid photographs depicting the developed fingerprint on the handle of the gas can.
I move to admit State's Exhibit 206.
No objection.
206 is admitted.
Actually, two photographs, is that correct?
That's correct. One's depicting the fingerprint on the handle, and there's another one that's up further on the spout.
Well, would I be pointing to the fingerprint on the handle then?
That's the one that's on the spout. The one on the left is the one that's on the handle.
Okay, so this is the one that you took off the handle.
That's the one that was developed on the handle and subsequently identified.
And how was the identification, how was that made?
It was made with a direct comparison with any fingerprints that I'd recorded from Mr. Liggins.
I'll show you what's been marked. It states 111. Recognize what states Exhibit 111 is.
Yes, sir, I do.
What is states Exhibit 111?
States Exhibit 111 is an inked 10-print fingerprint card bearing the name of Stanley Liggins, and this was recorded by me on September 19th of 1990.
You actually took Mr. Liggins' fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Would you recognize Mr. Liggins if you saw him today?
Yes, sir.
And is he in the courtroom?
Yes, sir, he is.
And where is he seated and what is he wearing?
He is seated to your right, and he's wearing a dark-colored suit and sunglasses.
I would ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
He does.
Now, so you have his known fingerprints, you personally took them, you have a fingerprint off a gasoline can. What is done then?
He was compared to see if the same ridge detail was present, and we were able to identify the fingerprint with the right ring finger of Mr. Liggins.
States Exhibit 111A. State Exhibit 111A show that the known and the photograph fingerprint.
Yes, it does.
It's time to state will admit States Exhibit 111A.
No objection, Your Honor.
Now, there's two sets of initials on there.
111A is in
Sorry. Whose initials are on there?
The initials of DJK are mine, and then the initials of RC are Richard Crivello's, who is a criminalist also in the DCI laboratory.
And what do his initials signify?
That he verified my identification.
He did the same examination and came to the same conclusion?
That is correct.
Mr. Wong, I don't have in my record that you admitted Exhibit 111. Did you want to admit that?
Yes, Your Honor, we would admit it subject to agreement of the parties on a modification.
With that, there's no objection.
All right. Exhibit 111 was admitted and modified.
Mr. Kern, just a couple more questions. Do you know the distance between, looking at Exhibit 135, do you know the distance between the location of Jennifer's body and the intersection with Myrtle Street and 12?
It's approximately 240 feet.
Were you involved in examining an item of Jennifer's clothing, were you involved in examining a picture of an item of Jennifer's clothing with Detective Don Schaefer?
I was, yes, sir.
And you recall when that occurred?
That would have occurred around the 25th. Yes, sir. On the 24th, Lieutenant Schaefer and I and other members of the department were at Jefferson School conducting some additional research. And when that was concluded, then Lieutenant Schaefer and I met at the police station, and I did enlargements of photographs that had been taken of Jennifer's clothing, specifically looking for foreign material that was still attached to her blouse. And looking at the photographs, we could tell that there was some kind of a dark plastic material that was adhering to the clothing.
When you enlarged the photographs and looked at it, the two of you come to a conclusion on what it might be.
It was dark plastic, and it had the appearance that it could be a plastic bag, it could be plastic tape, that it had the appearance of the foreign material adhering to the clothes.
And approximately what time of day were you doing, did the two of you do that?
This would have been, we started at the school at 8 o'clock, and this would have been somewhere between 10 and 11 o'clock that night.
What did you do after that?
I went home.
Did you receive a phone call from Detective Schaefer later that night?
Yes, I did.
About what time was that?
About 20 after 12 in the evening, or in the early morning.
And where was he?
He was at the hillside over in Rock Island, and he was looking at a plastic bag, and he wanted photographs taken of it before anything was done with it.
Did you go over to Hillside and do that?
Yes, sir. I met with him and Detective Loggy from the Rock Island Police Department.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Can we cross-examine?
Thank you, Your Honor. Can we approach real quick?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, rather than breaking up the cross-examination, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break now. It's 11:45, so we'll start again at 1 o'clock. Please keep the admonition in mind, keep an open mind, and do not discuss the case. Please rise to the jury.